Larry and I met on a mission trip to Mexico, serving with International Ministries missionary Chuck Shaver in 2006. We dated and fell in love. Chuck came and performed our ceremony. And then we kind of went back to living our normal lives. Larry served with the American Baptist Men Disaster Relief, and I was teaching. But then he saw the call for missionaries in Liberia. And we spent 2 years training, gathering our support, and then we were commissioned by the churches in 2014 to go to Africa. We went and we spent 101 days in Liberia, and it was an incredible experience. The work there seemed so necessary and so needed. We went back to the World Mission Conference at Green Lake in 2014, but unfortunately, we were not allowed to go back to Liberia because of the Ebola crisis. And so we were reassigned to Hungary. So in November of 2014, we went to Hungary, and though it was a completely different experience, it was an amazing time for me to get to know the people, for them to get to know us. They were so delighted we were there and that we let our kids be a part of their program and of their lives. Larry, however, was a little bit bored, truth be known. In Africa, he had great work to do, but in Hungary, not so much. And so he sort of stepped back and waited and watched for what the Lord would do next. So the girls and I continued settling into our lives in Hungary. I was teaching in the schools, telling the kids about serving God, loving God, and serving people. And then everything changed for Larry. A refugee crisis broke out across Europe. As the Syrian war was happening, thousands of refugees were flooding into Europe. And Larry was asked to go to the southern borders of Hungary to distribute supplies, mainly because he could speak English, and most Hungarians don't. And so what he saw there absolutely broke his heart. Hi friends, I have a special prayer request. Today was a wonderful day for me, but a terrible day for Larry. It was wonderful for me because we had a group from America, including a group of pastors come, and they got to see me teach in the school. I'll post pictures. It was wonderful, and it was a great blessing. Larry had a terrible day because he went back to the border, back to Croatia, and I haven't gotten all of the details yet, but he was there to try to get pictures for an upcoming issue of On Location, International Ministries magazine. And all he said was, it was terrible. The border is a mess. There was army, there were soldiers, and it was bad. He is safe, he is okay, but he's very upset. I can tell from his voice on the phone. So the prayer request is twofold. Please pray for Larry that he has peace, and please pray for the refugees. Please pray for the governments that are having to deal with this huge influx of people, governments that aren't strong and aren't wealthy, governments who are not equipped to deal with this problem. Pray for the refugees, the soldiers, the aid workers who are trying to help. We know and we believe that God is mercifully, powerfully in control, and that he moves people and he moves governments and he moves our hearts to action. And Larry felt this call to action. And so after he came back from the border, he then extended his ministry even to the Greek islands to help.
Good morning. Today is a day of travel. I'm at the airport in Budapest on my way to the Greek island Lesbos. There I'll serve the refugees who are coming from Syria through Turkey to enter the European Union. Thousands every day. Pray for my witness, and that I do the work that the Lord has prepared. Thank you.
Larry spent 3 weeks on the Greek island of Lesbos, working in what had been a prison, was expanded into a refugee camp. And he was very moved by what he saw there. He felt God moving in his heart to love and embrace this people group that in the past he had not loved.
Hey, good morning. This is the 30-second update. I'm at Idomeni, a camp in north central Greece. There's about 14,000 refugees here. I ask you to pray for them and to encourage others to participate in praying for a peaceful outcome for these people. And my witness, I thank you.
It often didn't feel peaceful in these camps. He met Petros and other European volunteers who were trying to help, and the chaos surrounded them. But what he did see were people and families. He met a barber who was doing what was likely his job back in Syria, and Larry asked his photographer friend, hey, take some pictures of me getting a shave from this guy. He wanted to show how very safe he was in these camps. Our family back home had said, be careful, don't wear a cross. The Arabs, the Muslims, they hate us, they'll kill you. And Larry said he never felt that. He wore his American Baptist Men bright orange t-shirt with a cross on it, and he never felt violence. But what he did see was people and families who had left their home for the safety of their children, with their parents often, fleeing war, looking to Europe as a safe haven. He experienced hospitality. It is a Middle Eastern practice to give guests something. And even when he was welcomed into their tents, they would look through the meager supplies that they had just to give him something. He met a man who had shrapnel in his arm from the Syrian war, and he was partially paralyzed. He saw an old lady cooking flatbread over a smoky fire. He talked with another man who asked, why do you get to go home? Why do you have a bed and a wife and safety? And Larry, knowing that Islam shares Old Testament stories, asked if the guy knew the story of Job. And Larry encouraged him to go someplace quiet and pray and ask God that it's okay to ask. You know, one of the most touching stories from this time was Larry meeting the little boy that they called Superman. They didn't see any adults, and we don't know what happened to him, but all we can do is pray for him and the other children and people that Larry met during this time. The work with the refugees introduced Larry to Pastor Zoltan, a Hungarian pastor living in northern Serbia. And after the refugees left, these very poor communities remained. And Zoltan invited him to come and help. And Larry started giving firewood, cutting trees, giving briquettes, and building relationships. You know, life went on in Teglash, where we were living. There were festivals and parties. The Hungarians love sharing their culture.
What down there? Burn your skirt. Come on. Oh, okay. The beans are a little tough. Roll is hot.
Fújjad, Becky!
Come on, Becky.
Na fújjad! Jó, szuper, csak látod, na milyen meghaltál. Még egyet? Minden!
And so, living here in Hungary year after year, Larry continued working with Zoltan, providing firewood and food baskets. These were all steps in building the relationship and how we became part of the community. And the Lord graciously provided family time for us as well. We got to attend our son Caleb's wedding. And then in 2018, my dad was diagnosed with leukemia, and the school and international ministries allowed us to go home a month early so I could be with him. And that was so important. And then also getting to take our home assignment every summer gives us an opportunity to reconnect with our supporting churches, to visit those who send us. And you know, it's the same thing over and over. We sense a call, and not knowing how to do it or what exactly is going on, we build relationships. We recently heard someone say that missionaries, and really any Christians, are like rototillers. We have to loosen the dirt. You can't plant seeds on hard soil. We know what happens. The seeds will spring up but die if they don't have a root. And so with these relationships, we loosen the dirt. In Serbia and in those relationships Larry has, and then my ongoing work in the schools, getting to know the teachers and growing the bilingual program. One of my favorite things that has happened year after year in Teglash is the school ball. It's an annual fundraiser, and the teachers dance as the grand finale. And we practice for months, and it's so much fun to work together with my colleagues and to have that great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Of course, in 2020, our worlds changed, didn't they, when COVID struck, and we were evacuated to the States for 5 months.
All right. Be brave. Smile. Shh, it's okay. You're okay. Stop. You got it?
Yep, got it.
Okay. You did it. Good job, BB. It did make your eyes water. Oh, bless you. No, she did them both. Oh, bless you again.
When we returned to Hungary in September, as my colleagues were coming down with COVID, Larry had the idea to provide meals to those who were in quarantine. Our school started calling it COVID catering. We shared John Piper's COVID in Christ, and that's how we worked through COVID in the first stages. In the midst of COVID, there was an earthquake in Croatia, and COVID had closed the borders with Serbia and other countries, so Larry was unable to do his usual ministries in Serbia, but because of the earthquake, they were able to get an emergency exemption to travel into Croatia, and that was a great blessing. In 2021, we were evacuated again from Hungary because we didn't have the health card and we were unable as Americans to get their vaccine. So we returned back to the U.S. where we were vaccinated the next day. And that summer of 21, we made many church visits. As things in the States were opening up after COVID, we were able to visit churches and make connections and reconnect. When we returned to Hungary that next fall, things were kind of back to normal. And once again, we started doing the same thing over and over. We would sense a call and maybe not know exactly what we were going to do or how it would play out. We would step forward in faith and build relationships. Ruth went to Serbia with Larry and got to experience the need there and how it felt to help. She was perhaps Larry's best translator. She had a wonderful time, and it was good for her to see our mission work and our mission life. In 2022, the Ukrainian war broke out in February, and Larry made a few trips to Ukraine But he really wasn't able to help in quite the same way as he had helped the refugees in the Syrian war. And it made him sad, but it was a different situation and a different group of refugees. Ruth went with him to the Ukrainian border, and he helped with Hungarian Baptist Aid, and they gave some supplies. He also went with our pastor. Our church has supporting or sister churches in Ukraine. So he was just loosening the dirt, building relationships, and continuing. Ruth graduated high school last year, and the whole high school entrance process, Ruth and the first bilingual class graduated, and she got to go to high school in Budapest. It was so rewarding to see those kids and to know that they made it through our program. Our program was a success. And then getting Ruth to a high school in Budapest was really an incredible experience. And so here we are now at the start of our third term, and we're praying for 10 more years. We would like to ask you to join us in partnership and prayer for 10 more years. It would be our joy and our honor. Now we have a couple of videos that are testimonials that we have asked some Serbians to do.
Köszöntünk, Margit. Kérjük az üzenetet.
Király Margit vagyok, Bácskosútfalváról, Szerbiából. Ledi testvérről, ha róla gondolkodom, szívem emlékezetében él, mint szolgáló szeretet, határtalan szeretet megszemélyesítője, mint Krisztus jó katonája, ki hűséggel, szelíden mutatja be Krisztus jellemét. Így teszi a dolgát, feladatát, mellyel mesterünk bízta meg őt. Így gondolkodom mindazokról a munkatársairól is, akikkel együtt munkálkodnak, így példaképeink számunkra is. Leri testvér, szeretettel visszavárunk a tiéddel együtt. Légy és maradj áldott a tiéddel együtt. Testvéri szeretettel kívánom.
Hi, I'm Zoltan Malac. I'm Larry's friend. When I first met Larry, I didn't know English so well that because of my stroke. He suggested to me that I reading English books and watching English movies. Since then, I began to read books, English books. I began to Python. I began to listening English music.
Hi, I am Amash. I am Zoltan's daughter. I don't know Larry personally, but I heard about him a lot. My family said that he's a really kind and helpful person, and he spreads positive energy when they first met him. Well, I was in school when my mom called me, and she said that someone wants to help us. And I was really shocked because I know that these days it's really a miracle when someone wants to help another. And my mom told me that she was really emotional when Larry helped us because He reminded her of my recently deceased grandfather, because he also really, well, he always helped my family and others. So it's like somehow he appeared. And I truly believe that Larry is a miracle to our family.
We want to thank you for sending us, supporting us, praying for us, and encouraging us in our ministry. We couldn't do it without you. With the Lord's help, we will continue as long as He sees fit. Thank you for your attention.